I was 9 years old, and it was the very first time that I was attempting to bake a cake on my own. And as I'm sitting there working on the ingredients, I'm envisioning this beautiful cake. It's going to be a masterpiece. I put it in the oven. I can't wait. And then 10 minutes later, I realize, oh my God, I forgot one of the most important ingredients, the baking powder. So sadly, my cake turned into a disaster. I was so sad. But much like a cake, there's actually a number of different types of ingredients that go into developing a social marketing campaign. And so there is a fundamental recipe that we could potentially follow. And I believe that two of those important things that I want to talk about is how do we understand our target audience and how do we help them do what we want them to do and make it as easy as possible for them to change. But when we look at our target audience, things start to look a little bit fuzzy sometimes. So what I want to do is take a step back and ask a few basic questions and help us really understand what do we really need to know about our target audience. And so some of those questions are, what do we need to know? The next question is, how do we learn about it? And the third one is, how do we apply that information to help these people change their behavior for good? And so the way to start this, really, I believe, is to start looking at human psychology at a very basic fundamental level. On one side, we have the rational mind. And the rational mind is the part of us that analyzes, the part of us that thinks, that can plan into the future. On the other side of our brain, we have this whole other part called the emotional mind. Now, the emotional mind is the side that feels pain and pleasure. It has our instincts. It's the part of you that would really want to go out and run through a field right now if the weather was good, because you'd much rather do that than be here, because isn't it great to be exuberant? And when we need, or what we learn is that both of them need each other in order to be able to function well and in order to enable change. And so there's a really fantastic analogy out there that was put together by Jonathan Haidt in his book called The Happiness Hypothesis, and then further explained in a book by Chip and Dan Heath called Switch. And the analogy goes like this. Imagine that emotional mind is like the elephant, and the rational mind is its rider. And the rider appears to be leading and directing things, but really its direction and leadership is precarious at best because it's so small compared to this huge 6-ton elephant. And anytime the rider and the elephant disagree about where they should go, well, ultimately, the elephant's going to win and the rider's going to lose. The elephant can overmatch that rider. And we've all experienced this in our own lives, right? Maybe last night you're at a holiday party and you have one too many of those cookies that you just thought were so amazing. Or maybe you woke up this morning and you hit the alarm clock one extra time because, oh, you just wanted to sleep. And then all of a sudden you have to run around really fast to get out the door in time. And so these two need each other in order to survive. The rider points to the direction and says, I want to go that way. And the elephant provides the muscle power to get there. And so this leads us to that first question of what do we really need to know in order to enable behavior change about our target audience? And the answer is we need to really know how to satisfy both the rider, that rational mind, and the elephant, the emotional mind. And the way that we can really understand the rider is something that we're very familiar with as social marketers. This is where we know that surveys and focus groups can come in handy because the rational mind will tell us exactly what she needs. Now, the emotional mind, that elephant, he's a little bit different. He's a little bit more tricky. And so how do we satisfy that elephant? Well, first, before I tell you that, I want to tell you what it is that he's specifically looking for. And simply put, he's looking to feel really good. And what's even more interesting, that he actually has certain preferences. His preferences depend on what it is that he's really wanting for that particular topic, just like you and me. Now, the trick for figuring out what it is that he really wants is a little bit challenging because, first of all, he doesn't actually have the same preferences as what the writer has. And second of all, his preference changes from topic to topic. So it's like this big puzzle trying to figure it out. Well, fortunately, there is a fantastic exercise and book that's out there called The Culture Code by Dr. Clotaire Rapaille. And he has put together this idea for how we can satisfy the elephant most successfully. And so what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the Culture Code. Now, Rapaille does not use the same language here, but I'm going to stay with the analogy of the elephant and the rider because I think it's going to really help us. So the Culture Code is what the elephant values most when considering any topic at hand. And so an example of this is, another way to look at this is that there's a sunglasses that they can look through in order to really help us enable how to make change in a positive way. And so it really allows us to peer into the mind of the elephant to help us understand what the elephant values most. Now, looking at the actual culture code itself, how it really works is really fascinating. Within every culture, almost everybody who grows up in that culture has an unconscious meaning that's applied to any particular thing. Give it a book, give it an airplane, give it a country. And that unconscious meaning comes early on in our age as we're developing as a part of our cultural development. And that unconscious meaning is exactly what the culture code is, and it's exactly what the elephant values most. So if we can learn what the culture code is, we can learn what the elephant values most. Another way to say this is when the elephant asks the question, well, what's in it for me to change? The culture code will tell us the best way to be able to answer that question to satisfy him. So a really good way to look at this is through an example. Let's say I want to buy a car. And the rational side of me says, well, I want a car with great gas mileage. I want a car that, let's say, is really good safety ratings and is big enough so that way my kids don't kill each other in the back of the car. The elephant, the emotional side, also has other types of questions. His questions are, how does this car make me look? Yeah. And even more accurately, it's, does this car reflect who I am as a person? And all of us in America actually ask that question behind all those rational things that we ask. And actually, if the answer is no, it doesn't reflect who you are as a person, there's no way you're going to buy that car, right? And so in America, people who grew up in America, they have elephants that value cars and look at them as a symbol of their identity. And this is very different than other parts of the world. For example, in Germany, people, their elephants, their unconscious minds, they value engineering. So they want a car that drives really smooth, that turns around corners really fast, has really great horsepower. And so what's really important about this is that if we can understand what that culture code is, if we can understand what that elephant values most unconsciously, then we can also tap into understanding how to most effectively answer that question of what's in it for me from the elephant's perspective as well. And so how do we get to know what the elephant prefers? And the answer is that we need to quiet the rider, because when the rider is around, she really wants to be in control. That is her job. Good for her. And the challenge, though, is that when she is around, she is going to really make it so the elephant can't really talk. And so we need to quiet her out. And the best way to do this is to give her the vacation that she deserves. So that way she can go away, and the elephant can come up, and he can actually talk to us. And the way that Rapai has done this, which is fascinating, is he actually goes and takes people, groups of people, through kind of it's like a meditation experience to get them to go deep so they quiet that mind, get the mind away so that way that deeper self can come out and talk. And he'll then ask questions related to their very first experience, related to that particular topic. And he'll ask them questions about their feelings and their emotions. And from that, he can derive what that culture code is. He can derive what their elephant values most about that particular thing. And so you may be asking yourself, how is this relevant? How is this important to me? And I want to be able to give you a couple examples that will help you understand this. So the first example is one from a recreational crabber project that we worked on, which was targeting recreational crabbers to basically protect the fishery, to do certain activities that will enable the fishery to maintain its integrity. And one of the things that we've seen in Puget Sound is that we've had in the last 15 years a 10-fold increase in the number of crabs that have been harvested out of Puget Sound. It's just because more and more people want to go crabbing these days. Well, one of the challenges that's happening, though, is that more and more people are losing their pots accidentally underwater, and the thing, once it's underwater, it continues to catch crab and kill them. In Puget Sound, 180,000 crabs die every year as a result from this. And so the good news is that there are people who are working to remove this, thankfully. But obviously, doesn't it make sense for us to try to fix the problem in the first place before they actually get in the water? So how do we help people do this? And what we ended up doing is having a number of partners who came together to figure out, let's develop a social marketing program that will help people both make it so they, if they do lose their pot, it won't necessarily kill crabs anymore. And two, why don't we help them try to make it so they don't even lose their pot in the first place? And so the way we did this was through helping volunteers go out on the major crabbing days, like the very first day of the season, and have conversations with people about crabbing. And the conversations go like this. Why, hello there. How are you today? Oh, you like my hat? Thanks. Yeah, he's actually feeling a bit crabby today. He's kind of poking me in the ear. But I'm actually doing really well. Thank you. My name is Stef, and I'm a volunteer. And I'm here today handing out free packets of information that can help you do a better job of catching more crabs and also protect our fishery at the same time. Do you have time to talk? And the conversation would continue from there. And it's these silly hats and this funny attitude is what was really important for the success of our project, we found out. And I was interested in learning a little bit more about, well, why is that? And it turns out, after the fact, actually years later, we realized that what was happening is we were right in line with the culture code for crabbing for people. And so what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity to experience what it is that that elephant is experiencing when somebody is out crabbing. And so what I want to do is I want to invite you to close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to imagine that you are about 7 years old. And it's a couple days from your birthday. And a few weeks ago, you asked for this amazing present. And you're so excited about this present because, oh my gosh, it's all you can think about all the time. Finally, it's your birthday. And the parents come and the kids come and you're having a good time and the party's there and the cake's there and all of a sudden they bring out the presents and you know which one your parents put on the table. Right? So you grab that one first because you're so excited and you open it up and you almost can't rip it off fast enough. And you look inside and you go, yes! Woohoo! You know, and you want to do a little dance and you're pretty happy and excited about it, right? And at least hopefully that's how it goes. Okay, now you can open up your eyes if you like. And similarly, crabbing may be a little bit less outward drama unless there's alcohol involved. That is similar, right? When somebody puts a crab trap into the water, there's that sense of anticipation that starts to build. And over the course of the day, it builds and builds and builds. And finally, once they're pulling up those crab traps, right, that anticipation climaxes until they know whether or not they have actually caught any crab. And once they do, if they got them, they do a little dance, it's all awesome, it's all great again, right? And so this idea, that similar idea, is the culture code for crabbing based on what I can tell. And so the culture code for crabbing is basically present or party. Now, how does this really apply to our actual project? Looking at the rational mind, she's going to say a variety of different things that's very different than what the emotional mind wants. The rational mind says, I want more crab to eat, I want free food. These are all logical, rational things. But the emotional mind, he's told us he wants more presents, aka crabs. He wants more parties and that cool stuff, that free stuff, it's really great too. Right? And so when we can combine this is what helps make us successful in an overall, overarching behavior change campaign. So looking at this of how we specifically apply it, we have these rational reasons to change that can satisfy the needs of the actual writer, clear calls to action, and we're also making it as easy as possible for that writer to direct that elephant right in the way of where we need to go. The elephant itself, though, that, again, wants the funny hats, the free funny stuff, and all that, because that's what's going to get him motivated to change. So let's take another look at another project, because you might be thinking, well, why shouldn't we just do funny, fun stuff all the time then? So another different project here is related to septic systems, which we heard a little bit about my expertise in that. And so we were working on a project that was looking at developing an overall program that would enable homeowners to take care of their septic systems. And as we were testing our materials at focus groups, we were passing out funny and fun messages to everybody. And as soon as they got them, they looked at them and they'd go, oh my gosh. And I mean, they were having a negative, visceral, deep reaction to these funny and fun messages. Isn't that interesting? I thought, well, why is that? Well, it turns out that those funny and fun messages are not consistent with the culture code, because the culture code is like a big scary monster to them. It's not just a big scary monster, it's actually Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The reason why, Dr. Jekyll, the really good doctor, he's the guy who takes care of the septic system. He's the one who takes all that nasty stuff you don't want in your house, gets it out of there. That's a cool thing. But out of nowhere, unexpectedly, Dr. Hyde, or Mr. Hyde can come out, and he can create a big monster, nasty disaster inside your house with a backup of sewage from your pipes. People take this very seriously. This is a very visceral, deep thing. And joking about it is inappropriate because it isn't going to solve their problem. And so looking at how we develop a program for this, we have the rational mind that says, I want more safety for my family, etc. Looking at the emotional mind, it says, you know, I'm really scared and I want protection from that monster, and I'm serious about this. And so we need to be thinking about these things when we're developing a program related to septic system care. And so how do we market to septic system homeowners? Well, first, again, we need to do clear calls to action. We need to provide the right strategy and the right tools to help that rational mind be able to direct that elephant where you want to go. But with the elephant this time, it's a whole different strategy. You need no-nonsense messaging to help that elephant realize that you're acknowledging that it's scared, just like a kid when a kid is scared. And then you also need to make sure that the kid can trust you, or the elephant can trust you. And then you need to provide an elephant a sense of assurance, something to feel good about, because the elephant's going to want to feel good when the elephant's going to move. And so when you combine all these things into a package again, that's what's going to enable a successful marketing program. And so I want to close today by just reaffirming that I believe that the key ingredients for this overall effort looking at developing social marketing campaigns is to address both the writer, the rational mind, and the elephant, the emotional mind. And when we can do that, we can be successful. And so I want to ask all of you, with your projects, are you addressing both the rational mind, the writer, and the elephant? And if the answer is yes, then you, the writer and the elephant, can go happily ever after riding off into the sunset. Thank you very much.